like bitch up. What's the status, 3?
I'm good, just making the world a better place, that's all.
Keep an arsenal, yeah, my gun is remarkable. Busted shots at the cardinal, now they calling inaudible. Killing all of them, evil people intolerable. Didn't mean the start of your blast, turn the particle. My apocrypha, summon my inner Asura, unlocking my chakra, flipping over your Akira. And I'm accurate, sniper rifle was damaging, blast as fast as a sassacus, cause his ass was a pacifist. Guess I mastered this, leave you frozen like mannequins. Now the masses is panicking, turning evil like Anakin. Call the coroner, aftermath of a warrior, whooping your ass like Morpheus. Kill streak was so glorious. I'm the pinnacle, grind your ass in the minerals. No need for subliminals, government is the criminals. I'm the general, revolution, the miracle. The code is reppin', that's unpredictable. Motherfucker.
Those weapons of mass destruction gotta be somewhere.
On the world stage, pushing weapons of mass destruction. The only weapon is the voice speaking mass deception. CGI planes inserted on 9/11. The Patriot Act inserted, all rights have been suspended. Black magic magicians with malicious intentions keep casting your votes for puppets pre-selected. Pre-planned pandemic with experimental injections. Contractual consent keeps farm under full protection. FDA allows cancerous dyes to pass inspection. It's $1 trillion profit, keeping us in sickness. Hypocrites under Hippocratic oath is so sickening. Speaking food for thought, using my freedom to express. Until I strike a nerve, then I'm censored, I digress. Elite created the rules and board on this game of chess. Israel pulls the strings, I'm not surprised or impressed. I'm just buying time until it's time to suppress the noise with the silence, so we sentence you to death. Convicted of treason, I let the gallows do the rest.
The decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq.
The Bakushi is the master of illusion, and if everyone believes the illusion, it becomes reality. Bakushi thinks he's won the game, but he didn't count on the pinch hitter.
All is continuous vibration, always in motion. Conductor of energy, assault in the ocean. Serpent is the sine wave, polarities interwoven. A chemical sorcery, elixirs and potions. Resonant frequencies, molecular explosions. Your daily programs is heavy doses of hypnosis. People walk around blind even though their eyes are open. No time for ideological salesmen with biblical notions. That box in your room, televised lies through your vision. It doesn't matter your race, status, or religion. No longer have to beat you when your mind is locked in prison. That food is filled with toxins, it's why you can't think clear. Illusion of choice is your option while keeping all in fear. Load up all your weaponry, the revolution is here. I said load up all your weaponry, the revolution is here.
We ain't in the same place, or occupy the same space, so get the fuck out my face.
In the instant I changed the mission with photosynthesis. Witness the synthesis, rip it in the sound instruments. Feel the frequency, energy off this Hennessy. Synergy, literally dome that take us to infinity. Reading articles, all is horrible, calling audibles. I'm remarkable, I shot a fed at a carnival. Dust and particles, follicles gon' be everywhere. Heavy pair of some pistols, I shot him holding that teddy bear. Fuck the system, let's keep it simple. Let's raise the temple, make them triple while you're going to where they all assemble. Not Avengers, I'm the Avenger. I seek the injure. Kept my temper till I stuck the hidden blade up in them. Fuck the ruler, here's what they doing to you. Poison water in the food is what you put into you. I'm the shooter with new maneuvers. Caught back to Ruger, super trooper. He is gonna need a pooper scooper. The revenge of Montezuma. Rockin' my Pumas, uppercut like a Kuma, sending you straight to Luna. Cosmic verses from universes on new excursions, emerging the virgin. I pull it back the iron curtain. War leaders are war eaters, born cheaters, war sneakers, rearrange their core features. Born reaper, hurricane, the sword keeper, form ether, burn all of the mold geezers. Up in government, parliament, bitch, I'm tarnishing arguments, ain't no bargaining, throw a bomb in the audience. I'm the guardian, strange you all in the cardigan, rearrange the universe, I am the artisan.
We ain't in the same place or occupy the same space. So get the fuck out my face.
As a king, fighting the spirit of Mesa King, vibing to my queen, playing the tambourine, while I'm eating the tangerine. My plasma was replaced with gasoline, got the blood of the Elohim, manifesting through a dream, a shit you never seen. I got the eyes of Medusa and the hands of Wolverine, astral project with my inner being. We locked in the inner ring, hoping the Anunnaki intervene. While the world is under siege, they got an abyss under the sea, living underneath. Lightning struck me standing under a tree while I was crumbling weed, and an angel swooped down, put me under her wing. Now she shields me from my desires the devil brings. Say my name in vain and you will never bleed. Say my name in vain and you will never bleed.
The Bakushi is the master of illusion. And if everyone believes the illusion, it becomes reality.
I know I'm early for once, right? What's good, Hurricane, Tommy? Much love and respect to y'all. So I'm so fired up right now, man. I had to fucking go exercise, man. So I'm gonna get this reading done. I should have did this way the last 2 days. I should have done the reading and then separated the panel. I thought about it and I'm like, damn, I want to make a playlist for this book, but anyway. Yeah, the panel that I'm gonna have, most people, it's not gonna be for most people. It's only gonna be for warriors, but anyway, let me just chill, 'cause I'm fucking pissed. That woman you had on the Hurricane that was speaking on last night's live stream you had, that woman spoke so much truth. She had me feeling so good to hear a woman's voice actually speak some fucking sense. You know, the youth needs mothers like that, man. You know, it kills me. All these organizations were created to protect communities and uplift their people, and all they do is kill each other now. This shit's fucking retarded. And then when the true enemy comes around, they're fucking quiet, and then they tell on each other. It's fucking ridiculous, man. This whole world's fucked. All the government does is take and take and take and take and take. Anyway, let me start reading, man. I need to chill out. I knew they were going to sign that bill. I fucking knew it. Just like 9/11, I said it, man. I knew it was coming. I fucking knew it. You know, Trump's a scumbag, fat slob. He lied about everything he said, which I knew he would, and people still will back him. It's insane, man. But I'm gonna save this shit for the live stream. You just shut up and get the reading. So I left off in page 37. I shouldn't have said any of that. It's supposed to be for the book, but I'm still amped up. So yeah, this chapter was League of Industrial Democracy, and they were listing off these organizations that are involved in the corruption of our country and the world. So we got oh my God. All right. Amalgamated Clothing Workers, officials, Murray Finley, Irwin Saul, and Jacob Shankman. Purpose, much the same as the Machinists Union, to socialize and polarize workers in the garment trade. A. Philip Randolph Institute, officials, Bayard Rustin. Purpose, to provide a means of coordinating organizations with a common purpose, an example of which would be spread of socialist ideas among college students and workers. Cambridge Policy Studies Institute. Officials, I don't know what GAR means, or maybe his name is Gar Applerobs. I don't know. Purpose, to expand on the work being done at the Institute for Policy Studies, founded in February of 1969 by international socialist Gar Applerowitz. I think it's Applerowitz, former assistant to Senator Galen Nelson. Gar wrote the controversial book Atomic Diplomacy for the Club of Rome, which work was financed by the German Marshall Fund. It concentrates on research and action projects with the stated goal of fundamentally changing American society to create a Fabianist United States in preparation of the coming one world shithole. Economic Committee of the North Atlantic Institute. Officials, Dr. Aurelio Pesci. Purpose, NATO, think tank on global economic issues. Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions. Officials, founder Robert Hutchins of the Committee of 300, Harry Ashmore, Frank Kelly, and a large group of fellows. Purpose, to spread idea that will bring on social reforms of the liberal kind with democracy as an ideology. One of its activities is to draft a new constitution for the U.S., which will be strongly monarchical and socialistic, as found in Denmark. See, these people are anyway. The center is an Olympian stronghold located in Santa Barbara. It is housed in what is affectionately called the Parthian. Former Representative John Rarick called it an outfit loaded with communists. By 1973, work on the United States Constitution was in its 35th draft, which proposes an amendment guaranteeing environmental right, the thrust of which is to reduce the industrial base of the U.S. to a mere whisper of what it was in 1969. In other words, the institution is carrying out Club of Rome zero growth post-industrial policies laid down by the Committee of 300. Some of its other aims are control of economic cycles, welfare, regulations of business, and national public works, control of pollution. Speaking on behalf of the Committee of 300, Ashmore says the function of the CSDI is to find ways and means of making our political system work more effectively. We must change education, and we must consider a new U.S. Constitution and a Constitution for the world, Ashmore says. Yeah, fuck off. Further goals enunciate by Ashmore are as follows. 1. Membership of the UN must be made universal. 2. The UN must be strengthened. 3. Southeast Asia must be neutralized. For neutralized, read communized. 4. Cold War must be ended. 5. Racial discrimination must be abolished. 6. Developing nations must be assisted, meaning assisted to destruct. And 7. No military solutions, no problems. It's funny that the very people who are the racist scumbags are the ones saying we need to get rid of it. Oh, 7, it said no military solutions to problems. And it said, pity they didn't tell George Bush that before the Gulf War. 8, national solutions are not adequate. And 9, coexistence is necessary. Harvard Psychological Clinic officials, Dr. Kurt Lewin and staff of 15 new scientists. Purpose, to create a climate where the Committee of 300 can take unlimited power over the U.S. Institute for Social Research officials, same guy, Dr. Kurt Lewin and a staff of 20 new scientists. Purpose, to devise a whole new set of social programs to steer America away from the industry. Science Policy Research Unit officials, Leland Bradford, Kenneth Dam, Ronald Lippert. Purpose, a future stock research institution at Sussex University in England and part of the Tavistock Network. I still didn't look who Tavistock is. Systems Development Corporation officials, Sheldon Ehrenberg and a staff of hundreds, too numerous to mention here. Purpose, to coordinate all elements of the intelligence communities of the USA and Britain. It analyzes what players have to be assigned the role of a national entity. For example, Spain would come under a supine, watered-down Catholic Church. The UN under the Secretary General and so forth. It developed the system of X-Ray 2, where think tank personnel, military installations, and law enforcement centers are all linked to the Pentagon through a nationwide network of teletypes and computers. To apply surveillance techniques on a nationwide scale, Ehrenberg says his idea are not military, but his techniques are mainly those he learned from the military. He was responsible for the New York State Identification and Intelligence System, a typical George Orwell 1984 project, which is completely illegal under the Constitution. The NYSIS, I don't know what that is, the NYSIS or the NYSIS system is the process of being adopted nationwide. It is what Brzezinski referred to as the ability to almost instantaneously retrieve data about any person. Wow. That sounds like Palantir right now. Interesting. NYSIS shares data with all law enforcement and government agencies in the state. It provides storage and rapid retrieval of individual records, criminal and social. It is a typical committee of a 300 project. There is a crying need for a full investigation to be conducted into what it is that Systems Development Corporation is doing. But that is beyond the scope of this book. One thing is sure, that SDS is not there to preserve freedom and liberty guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. How convenient that is. How convenient that should be, located in Santa Barbara in easy reach of Robert Hutchins' pantheon. Some publications put out these Club of Rome institutions as follows. Center Magazine, Counterspy, Coventry, Covert Action Information Bulletin, Dissent, Human Relations, Industrial Research, Inquiry, Mother Jones, One, Progressive, Raconteur? It ain't Racketeer. Anyway, The New Republic, Working Papers for a New Society. Oh. What the heck? Every time I scroll down, this thing bugs out, man. What the heck? That people always talking about we could settle this in court, man. That's even more corrupt. We'll get into that in my open stream. These are by no means all of the publications issued under the auspices of the Club of Rome. There are many hundreds more. In fact, each of the foundations puts out its own publication. Given the number of foundations run by Tavistock Institute and the Club of Rome, a partial listing is all we can include here. Some of the more important foundations and think tanks are in the following list, which includes Army think tanks. The American public would be astounded if they only knew how deeply the Army is involved in new war tactics, research with Committee of 300 think tanks. Americans are not aware that in 1946 the Club of Rome was ordered by the Committee of 300 to further the progress of think tanks, which is said offered a new means of spreading the committee's philosophy. The impact of these think tanks upon our military, just since 1959, when they suddenly proliferated, is truly astounding. There is no doubt that they will play an even greater role in the daily affairs of this nation as we come to a close of the 20th century. The Mont Pelerin Society. Mont Pelerin is an economic foundation devoted to issuing misleading economic theories and influencing economists in the Western world to follow models it lays out from time to time. Its leading practitioners are von Hayek and Milton Friedman. The Hoover Institution, founded originally to fight communism. The institution has slowly but surely turned towards socialism. Any of those isms are bad. It has an annual budget of $2 million funded by companies under the umbrella of the Committee of 300. It now concentrates on peaceful changes, which emphasizes on arms control and domestic U.S. problems. It is frequently used by the news media as a conservative organization whose views they seek when a conservative viewpoint is needed. The Hoover Institution is far from that and follows the 1953 takeover of the institution by a group allied to the Club of Rome. It has become a one world order outlet for desirable policies. Heritage Foundation, founded by brewery magnate Joseph Coors to act as a conservative think tank. Heritage was soon taken over by Fabianist Sir Peter Vickers Hall, Stuart Butler, Stephen, I don't know how to say that, Azeli, something like that, Robert Moss, and Frederick von Hayek, under the direction of the Club of Rome. This institute played a major role in carrying out British Labour leader Anthony Wedgwood Benn's order to Thatcherize Reagan. Heritage is certainly not a conservative operation, although at times it may look and sound like one. Human Resources Research Office. This is an Army research establishment dealing in psychotechnology. Most of its personnel are Tavistock trained. Psychotechnology covers GI motivation, moral and music used by the enemy. In fact, a lot of what George Orwell wrote about in his book in 1984 appears to be remarkably similar to what is taught at Humro. That's spelled HUMRRO. In 1969, the Committee of 300 took over the important institution and turned it into a private non-profit organization run under the auspices of the Club of Rome. It is the largest behavioral research group in the U.S. You know they love testing on soldiers, boy. One of its specialties is a study of small groups under stress, and HUMRO teaches the Army that a soldier is merely an extension of his equipment and has brought great influence to bear on the man/weapon system and its human quality control, so widely accepted by the United States Army. HUMRO has had a very pronounced effect on how the Army conducts itself. Its mind-bending techniques are straight out of Tavistock. HUMRO's applied psychology courses are supposed to teach Army brass how to make the human weapon work. A good example of this is the manner in which soldiers in the war against Iraq were willing to disobey their field manual standing orders and bury 12,000 Iraqi soldiers alive. This type of brainwashing is terribly dangerous because today it is applied to the Army and the police. That's why they don't respect the Constitution here. Anyway, it is applied to the Army. The Army applies it so brutally, destroyed thousands of enemy soldiers, and tomorrow the Army could be told that civilian population groups opposed to government policies are the enemy. We are already a mindless, brainwashed flock of sheep. Yet, it seems that HUMRO can take mind-bending and mind control a step further. HUMRO is a valuable adjunct to Tavistock, and many of the lessons taught at HUMRO were applied in the Gulf War, which makes a little easier to understand how it came to be that American soldiers behaved as ruthless as heartless killers, a far cry from the concept of the traditional American fighting man. Research Analysis Corporation. This is HUMRO's sister, 1984, organization situated in McLean, Virginia, established in 1948. It was taken over by the Committee of 300 in 1961. When it became part of the Johns Hopkins block, it was worked on over 600 projects, including interrogating Negroes into the Army, the tactical use of nuclear weapons, psychological warfare programs, and mass population control. Obviously, there are many more major think tanks, and we shall come to the most of them in this book. One of the most important areas of cooperation between what think tanks turn out and what becomes government and public policy are the pollsters. The pollsters, my fault. It is the job of the polling companies to mold and shape public opinion in the way that suits the conspirators. Polls are constantly being taken by CBS, NBC, ABC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc. Most of these efforts are coordinated at the National Opinion Research Center, where, as much as it will amaze most of us, a psychological profile was developed for the entire nation. Findings, Findings are fed into the computers of Gallup Poll and Yankovic, Skelly, and White for comparative evaluation. Much of what we read in our newspapers or see on television has first been cleared by the polling companies. What we see is what the pollsters think we should see. This is called public opinion making. The whole idea behind this bit of social conditioning is to find out how responsive the public is to policy directives handed down by the Committee of 300. We are called targeted population groups, and what is measured by the pollsters is how much resistance is generated to what appears in the nightly news. Later, we shall learn exactly how this deceptive practice got started and who's responsible for it. It is all part of the elaborate opinion-making process created at Tavistock. Today, our people believe they are well-informed, but what they do not realize is that the opinions they believe are their own were in fact created in a research institution and think tanks of America, and that none of us are free to form our own opinions because of the information we're provided with the media and the posters. Polling was brought to a fine art just before the United States entered the Second World War. Americans, unbeknown to themselves, were conditioned to look upon Germany and Japan as dangerous enemies who had to be stopped. In a sense, that was true, and that makes conditioned thinking all the more dangerous, because based on the information fed to them, the enemy did not indeed appear to be German and Japan. Just recently, we saw how well Tavistock's conditioning process works when Americans were conditioned to perceive Iraq as a threat and Saddam Hussein as a personal enemy of the United States. Such a conditioning process is technically described as the message reaching the sense organs or persons to be influenced. One of the most respected of all pollsters is the Committee of 300 member Daniel Yankovic of the company Yankovic, Skelly and White. Yankovic is proud to tell his students that polling is a tool to change public opinion. Although this is not original, Yankovic, having drawn his inspiration from David Naisbitt's book, Trend Report, which was commissioned by the Club of Rome. In this book, I think his name's Naisbitt, spelled Naisbett. I don't know. In this book, I call him Naisbitt, not Naisbitt, described all the techniques used by public opinion makers to bring about the public opinion desired by the Committee of 300. Public opinion making is the jewel in the crown of the Olympians. For with their thousands of new social scientists at their beck and call, and with the news media firmly in their hands, new public opinions on almost any subject can be created and disseminated around the world in a matter of 2 weeks. This is preciously what happened when their servant George Bush was ordered to make war on Iraq. Within 2 weeks, not only the U.S., but most of the entire world, public opinion was turned against Iraq and its president Saddam Hussein. These media change artists and news manipulators report directly to the Club of Rome, which in turn reports to the Committee of 300, at whose head sits the Queen of England, ruling over a vast network of closely linked corporations who never pay taxes and are answerable to no one, who funds their research institutions through foundations whose joint activities have almost total control over our daily lives. Today, with their interlocking companies, insurance business, banks, finance corporations, oil companies, newspapers, magazines, radio and television, this vast apparatus sits astride the United States and the world. There is not a politician in Washington, D.C. who is not somehow beholden to it. The left rails against it, calling it imperialism, which indeed it is, but the left is run by the same people, the very same ones who control the right, so that the left is no more free than we are. Scientists engaged in the process of conditioning are called social engineers or new science social scientists, and they play an integral part in what we see, hear, and read. The old school social engineers were Kurt K. Lewin, Professor Hadley Cantrell, Margaret Mead, Professor Derwin Cartwright, and Professor Lipschitz, who together with John Rawling Rees made up the backbone of New Science scientists at Tavistock Institute. During the Second World War, over 100 researchers at work under the direction of Kurt Lewin, copying slavishly the methods adopted by Reinhard Heydrich of the SS. The OSS was based on Heydrich's methodology, and, as we know, the OSS was the forerunner of the Central Intelligence Agency. The point of all this is that the governments of Britain and the United States already have the machinery in place to bring us into line in the New World Order, with only a slight modicum of resistance materializing, and this machinery has been in place since 1946. Each passing year has added new refinements. In this Committee of 300, which has established control networks and mechanisms far more binding than anything ever seen in this world, chains and ropes are not needed to restrain us. Our fear of what is to come does that job far more efficiently than any other physical means of restraint. We have been brainwashed to give up our constitutional right to bear arms, to give up our Constitution itself, to allow the United Nations to exercise control over our foreign policies, and the IMF to take control of our fiscal and monetary policies, to permit the president to break United States law and impunity, and to invade a foreign country and kidnap its head of state. In short, we have been brainwashed to the extent where we, as a nation, will accept each and every lawless act carried out by our government almost without question. I, for one, know that we will soon have a fight to reclaim our country from the committee or lose it forever. But it comes right down to it. How many will actually take up arms? In 1776, only 3% of the populace took up arms against King George III. This time around, 3% will be wholly inadequate. We should not allow ourselves to lead down dead-end roads, for that is what our mind controllers have planned for us by confronting us with such complexity of issues that we simply succumb to long-range penetration and make no decisions at all on many vital issues. We shall be looking at the names of those who make up the Committee of 300, but before we do that, we should examine the massive interfacing of all important institutions, companies, and banks under the committee's control. We must mark them well because these are the people who are deciding who shall live and who shall be eliminated as useless eaters, where we will worship God, what we must wear, and even what we shall eat. According to Brzezinski, we shall be under endless surveillance around the clock for 365 days a year ad infinitum. That we have been betrayed from within is being accepted by more and more people each year. And that is good because it is through knowledge, a word translated from the word belief, that we shall be able to defeat the enemies of all mankind, while we are being distracted by the boogeyman in the Kremlin. The Trojan horse was moved into position in Washington, D.C. The greatest danger free people face today is not Moscow, but from Washington, D.C. We need first to conquer the domestic enemy, and after that we will be strong enough to mount an offensive to remove communism from the earth. Together, with all its attendant isms. The Carter administration accelerated the collapse of our economy and our military strength, the latter begun by Club of Rome and Lucas Trust, member of Robert Strange McNarma. In spite of his promises, Reagan continued to undermine our industrial base, starting where Carter left off. While we need to keep our defense strong, we cannot do that from a weak industrial base. For without a well-run military-industrial complex, we cannot have a viable defense system. The Committee of 300 recognizes this and planned from 1953 its zero-growth post-industrial policies now in full flower. Thanks to the Club of Rome, our technology potential has dropped below that of Japan and Germany, nations we are supposed to have defeated in the Second World War. How has this come about? Because of men like Dr. Alexander King and our blindfolded state of mind. We have failed to recognize the destruction of our educational institutions and systems of teaching. As a result of our blindness, we are no longer training engineers and scientists in sufficient numbers to keep us among the industrialized nations of the world. Thanks to Dr. King, a man very few people in America know about, education in the U.S. is at its lowest level since 1786. Statistics produced by the Institute for Higher Learning show that the reading and writing capabilities of high school children in the United States are lower than they were among high school children in 1786. What we face today is not only the loss of our freedom and the very fabric of our nation, but far worse, the possibility of the loss of our souls, the steady chipping away at the foundation upon which this republic rests had left an empty void, which Satanists and cultists are rushing to fill with their synthetic soul material. This truth is difficult to accept and appreciate because there was nothing sudden about these events. If a sudden shock were to hit us, a cultural and religious shock, we would be shaken out of our apathy. But gradualism, which is what Fabianism is, does nothing to raise the alarm, because the vast majority of Americans can see no motivation for things I have described. They cannot accept it, and so the conspiracy is scorned and often mocked. By creating chaos through presenting hundreds of daily choices our people have to make, we have come down to a position where, unless motivation can be clearly shown, all information is rejected. This is both the weak and the strong link in the conspiratorial chain. Most thrust aside anything that has no motive. So the conspirators feel safe behind the ridicule poured upon those who point to the coming crisis in our nation and our individual lives. However, if we can get enough people to see the truth, the motivation block gets weaker until it will eventually be forced aside as more and more people become enlightened in the notion that this cannot happen in America is dispensed with. Peace to Alan Warren. The Committee of 300 is counting on our maladaptive, I never heard of that word. The Committee of 300 is counting our maladaptive responses to govern our reaction to creative events. And it will not be disappointed as long as we as a nation continue in the present way we respond. We must turn responses to created crisis into adaptive responses by identifying the conspirators and exposing their plans for us, so that these things become public knowledge. The Club of Rome has already made the transition to barbarism. Instead of waiting to be raptured, we must stop the Committee of 300 before it can accomplish its goal, making us prisoners of the new dark age planned for us. It's not up to God, it's up to us. We have to take necessary action. All information that I provide in this book comes from years of research backed by impeccable, intelligent sources. Nothing is exaggerated. You know what's crazy? I'm going to just stop for 1 second. He's been on point with everything. And this book was written back in the days. And most of what he's talking about happening. It is factual and precise, so do not fall into the trap set by the enemy. That is material is disinformation. For the past 2 decades, I have provided information which has proved to be highly accurate and which has explained a lot of puzzling events. My hope is that through this book, a better, clearer, and wider understanding of the conspiratorial forces ranged against this nation will come about. That hope is being realized as more and more young people are beginning to ask questions and seek information about what is really going on. It is difficult for people to comprehend that these conspirators are real and that they have the power I and many others have attributed to them. Many have written to ask how it is that our government does nothing about the terrible threat to civilization. No, they're the threat to civilization. The problem is that our government is part of the problem. Not part, they are. Part of the conspiracy. And nowhere and at no time has this become more clearly evident than during the Bush presidency. Of course, President Bush knows precisely what the Committee of 300 is doing to us. He works for them. Others have written to say, quote, "We thought we were fighting the government. Of course we are. But behind government stands a force so powerful and all-encompassing that intelligence agencies are even afraid to mention the name Olympians." Proof of the Committee of 300 is found in the vast number of powerful institutions owned and controlled by it. Listed here are some of the more important ones, all of which come under the mother of all think tanks and research institutions, the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, with its far-flung network of hundreds of branches. I gotta look into this Tavistock shizzle. How far are we into this? 48 minutes? What page did I start on? I don't remember. I'm on page 45. All right. Stanford Research Center. Damn. My ass hurts. I gotta fucking lean forward to do this. It sucks. I gotta get a chair. Stanford Research Center. Stanford Research Center was founded in 1946 by the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations. Stanford was created to help Robert O. Anderson and his Arco Oil Company, who had secured for the Committee of 300 the oil rights on the North Slope of Alaska. Basically, the job was too large for Anderson's Aspen Institute to handle, so a new center had to be founded and funded. That new center was Stanford Research Center. Alaska sold its rights on a down payment of $900 million, a relatively small amount for the Committee of 300. The governor of Alaska was steered to SRI for help and advice. This was no accident, but the result of judicious planning and a process of long-range conditioning. Following the governor's call for help, 3 SRI scientists set up shop in Alaska, where they met with the Alaskan Secretary of State and the State Planning Office. Francis Grehan, who headed the SRI team, assured the governor that His problem of how to handle the rich oil find would be safe in the hands of SRI. Naturally, Grian did not mention the Committee of 300 or the Club of Rome. In less than a month, Grian assembled a team of economists, petroleum scientists, and new science scientists, numbering in the hundreds. The report SRI gave the governor ran to 88 pages. The proposal was adopted virtually without change by the Alaska legislature in 1970. Grian had indeed done a remarkable job for the Committee of 300. From this beginning, SRI developed into an institution employing 4,000 people with an annual budget of $160 million plus. Its president, Charles A. Anderson, has been much of this growth during his tenure, as has Professor Willis Harman, director of the SRI Center for the Study of Social Policies, employing hundreds of new scientists, many of the top staffers having been transferred from Tavistock's London base. One of those was RCA board chairman and former British intelligence agent David Sarnoff, who was closely involved with Harman and his team for 25 years. Sarnoff was something of a watchdog for the Mother Institute in Sussex. It said right here, the board chairman of RCA. That makes sense. The dude is a British intelligence agent. Of course he's going to know about electronics. Anyway. Stanford claims to make a no moral judgments on projects it accepts, working for Israel and the Arabs, South Africa and Libya. But, as one would imagine, by adopting this attitude, it ensures an inside edge with foreign governments that the CIA has found most useful. In Jim Ridgway's book, The Closed Corporation, SRI spokesman Gibson brags about SRI's non-discriminatory stance. Although not on the Federal Contract Research Center list, SRI is today the largest military think tank, dwarfing Hudson and Rand. Among SRI's specialty departments are chemical and biological warfare experimental centers. One of Stanford's more dangerous activities is counterinsurgency operations aimed at civilian populations, just the sort of 1984 things government is already using against its own people. The U.S. government pays SRI millions of dollars each year for this kind of highly controversial research. Following student protests against chemical warfare experiments conducted at Stanford, SRI sold itself to a private group for just $25 million. Of course, nothing really changed. SRI was still a Tavistock project, and the Committee of 300 still owned it. But the gullible appeared to be satisfied by this meaningless cosmetic change. As usual, the sheep are always satisfied with meaningless bullshit. In 1958, a startling new development arose. Advanced Research Products Agency, ARPA, a contracting agency for the Defense Department. It sounds like DARPA. Approached SRI with a top secret proposal. John Foster at the Pentagon, or the Pentagram, told SRI that was needed was a program to ensure the United States against technological surprise. Foster wanted to perfect a condition where the environment became a weapon. Special bombs to trigger volcanoes, and or earthquakes. Behavioral research on potential enemies and minerals and metals with potential for new weapons. The project was accepted by SRI and code-named Shaky. Oh, shizzle. The massive electronic brain in Shaky was capable of carrying out many commands, its computers having been constructed by IBM for SRI. 28 scientists worked on what is called human augmentation. The IBM computer even has the capability to solve problems by analogy and recognizes and identifies scientists who work with it. The special applications of this tool can be better imagined than described. Brzezinski knew what he was talking about when he wrote The Technotronic Era. Stanford Research Institute works closely with scores of civilian consulting firms, trying to apply military technology to domestic situations. This has not always been a success, but as techniques improve, the prospects for massive, all-pervading surveillance, as described in Brzezinski's Daily, becomes more real. It already exists and is in use, even though slight malfunctions from time to time have to be ironed out. One such civilian consulting firm was Shriver McKee, associate of McLean, Virginia, run by retired General Bernard A. Shriver, a former chief of the Air Force Systems Command, who developed the Titan, Thor, Atlas, and Minutemen rockets. Shriver put together a consortium. I think that's how you say that. Shriver put together a consortium of Lockheed, Emerson Electric, Northrop, Control Data, Raytheon, and TRW under the same of Urban System Associates Inc. Those are all people that work for the military. The purpose of the consortium to solve social and psychological urban problems by means of military techniques using advanced electronic systems. It is interesting to note that TRW became the largest credit information collecting company in the credit reporting business as a result and an outcome of its work with the Urban System Associates Inc. This should tell us a great deal about just how far this nation is already under total surveillance, which is the first requirement of the Committee of 300. No dictatorship, especially not one on a global scale, can function without total control over each and every individual. SRI was well on its way to becoming the key committee of 300 research organization. I'll stop at page 50, I think. By the 1980s, 60% of SRI's contracts were devoted to futurism, with both military and civilian applications. Its major clients were the U.S. Department of Defense, Directorate of Defense Research and Engineering, Office of Aerospace Research, which dealt with applications of the behavioral science to research management, Executive Office of the President, Office of Science and Technology, U.S. Department of Health. On behalf of the Department of Health, SRI ran a program called Patterns in ESDEA Title 1 Reading Achievement Tests. Other clients were the U.S. Department of Energy, the U.S. Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Transportation, and the National Science Foundation. Of significance was the paper developed for NSF entitled Assessment of Future and International Problems. Standard Research, under the tutelage of Tavistock Institute in London, put together a far-reaching and chilling system called Business Intelligence Program. In excess of 600 companies in the U.S. and abroad became subscribers. The program covered research in Japanese foreign business relations, consumer marketing in a period of change, the mounting challenge of international terrorism, sensory evaluation in consumer products, electronic funds transfer system, optoelectric sensing, exploratory planning methods, the U.S. defense industry and capital availability. Among the top committee of 300 companies who became clients of this program were Bechtel Corporation. George Shultz was on his board. Hewlett Packard, TRW, Bank of America, Shell Company, RCA, Blythe, Eastman Dillon, Saga Foods Corporation, McDonnell Douglas, Crown Zelderbach, Wells Fargo Bank, and Kaiser Industries. Shit. I hate when this happens. But one of the most sinister of all SRI programs, with the possibilities of doing tremendous damage and altering the direction in which the United States will go, socially, morally, and religiously, was Stanford's Charles F. Kettering Foundation's Changing Images of Man, under Stanford official reference, contract number URH 489-2150. Policy Research Report number 4/4/74, prepared by the SRI Center for the Study of Social Policy, Director Willis Harman. This is probably one of the most far-reaching investigations into how man might be changed that has never been conducted. What's up, DJ Graves? Peace. The report, covering 319 pages, was written by 14 new scientists under the supervision of Tavistock and 23 top controllers, including B.F. Skinner, Margaret Mead, Irvin Laszlo, and Sir Geoffrey Vickers, a high-level British intelligence officer in M16. It will be recalled that his son-in-law, Sir Peter Vickers Hall, was a founding member of the so-called Conservative Heritage Foundation. Much of the 3,000 pages of recommendations given to the Reagan administration in January of 1981 were based upon material taken from Willis Harman's Changing Images of Man. I was privileged to receive a copy of The Changing Images of Man from my intelligence colleagues 5 days after it was accepted by the United States government. What I read shocked me, as I realized I was looking at a blueprint for future America, unlike anything I had ever seen before. The nation was to be programmed to change and become so accustomed to such planned changes that it would hardly be noticeable when profound changes did occur. We have gone downhill so fast since the Aquarian conspiracy was written that today divorce draws no stigma, suicide is at an all-time high and raises few eyebrows. Social deviations from the norm and sexual aberrations, once unmentionable in dissent circles, are now commonplace and excite no special protest. As a nation, we have not noticed how Changing Images of Mankind has radically altered our American way of life forever. Somehow we were overcome by the Watergate syndrome. For a while, we were shocked and dismayed to learn that Nixon was nothing but a cheap crook who hobnobbed with Earl Warren's mafia friends at the beautiful home they built for him adjoining the Nixon estate. When too many future shocks and news headlines demanded our attention, we lost our way, or rather, the huge number of choices with which we're and still are daily confronted confused us to such a degree that we were no longer able to make the necessary choices. I guess. I don't think I wasn't alive when Nixon was president. I don't think. No, he was in the 70s, I think. Worse yet, having been subjected to a barrage of crimes in high places, plus the trauma of the Vietnam War, our nation seemed no longer to want truce. Such reaction is carefully explained in Willis Harman's technical paper. In short, the American nation was reacting exactly as profiled. Worse yet, in not wishing to accept truth, we took matters a step further. We looked to the government to shield us from the truth. Ugh. The corrupt stench of the Reagan-Bush administrations we wanted covered with 6 feet of earth. The crimes committed under the title of Iran/Contra affair or scandals we didn't want uncovered. We let our president lie to us regarding his whereabouts in the period of October 20 through 23rd of 1980. Yet these crimes far exceeded in quantity and scope anything Nixon did while he was in office. Do we as a nation recognize it as going downhill with our brakes off? Now, you know it's crazy that they brought up Reagan and he lied to us? It reminds me of Trump. Trump lied to everybody and didn't do shit. He's sucking, and we'll get into that. Let me finish this. No, we did not. Oh yeah, it says, do we as a nation recognize it as going downhill with our brakes off? No, we do not. When those whose business is to bring the truth to the American people that a private, well-organized little government inside the White House was busy committing one crime after another, crimes which attack the very soul of this nation and the Republican institutions upon which it rested. We were told not to bother the public with such things. We really don't want to know about all this speculation became a standard response. When the highest elected official of the land blatantly put UN law above the Constitution of the United States, an impeachable offense, the majority accepted it as normal. When the highest elected official of the land went to war without a congressional declaration of war, the fact was censored out of the news media, and again, we accepted it rather than face the truth. When the Gulf War, which our president plotted and planned, began, not only were we happy with the censorship of the most blatant kind, we even took it to our hearts, believing that it was good toward the war effort. Our president lied. April Glaspie lied. The State Department lied. They said the war was justified because President Hussein had been warned to leave Kuwait alone. When Glaspie's cables to the State Department were finally made public, one United States senator after another went charging to defend Glaspie, the harlot. It mattered not that they came from both the Democrats and the Republicans. We the people let them get away with their vile lies. In this public attitude of the American people, the wildest dreams of Willis Harman, his teams of scientists became a reality. The Tavistock Institute was elated at its success in destroying the self-respect and self-esteem of this once great nation. We are told that we won the Gulf War. What is not yet perceived by the vast majority of Americans is that in winning the war, it cost the self-respect and honor of our nation. that lies rotting in the desert sands of Kuwait and Iraq, alongside the corpses of Iraqi soldiers we butchered in the agreed retreat from Kuwait and Basra. We could not keep our word that we would abide by the Geneva Conventions and not attack them. What do we want? Our controllers asked us, victory or self-respect. You can't have both. 100 years ago, this could not have happened. But now it has happened and excites no comment. We have succumbed to the long-range penetration warfare waged against this nation by Tavistock. Like the German nation defeated by prudential bombing survey, enough of us have succumbed to make this nation the kind that totalitarian regimes of the past would have only envisaged in their dreams. Here, they would say, is a nation, one of the largest in the world, that doesn't want the truth. All of our propaganda agencies can be dispensed with. We don't have to struggle to keep the truth from the nation. They have willingly rejected it of their own violation. This nation is a pushover. Our once proud Republic of the United States of America became no more than a series of criminal front organizations, which history shows is always the start of totalitarianism. This is the stage of permanent alteration we are at in America as 1991 drew to a close. We live in a throwaway society, programmed not to last. We do not even flinch at the 4 million homeless, nor the 30 million jobless, nor the 15 million babies murdered thus far. They are throwaways of the age of Aquarius, a conspiracy so damn able that when the first confronted with it, the majority will disavow its existence, rationalizing these events as times have changed. This is how the Tavistock Institute and Willis Harman programmed us to react. Dismantling of our ideals goes on without protest. The spiritual and intellectual drive of our people has been destroyed. On May 27, 1991, President Bush made a very profound statement, the thrust of which appears to have been totally misused by most political commentators. Quote, the moral dimension of America policy requires us to chart a moral course through a world of lesser evils. That is the real world, not black and white, very few moral absolutes, end quote. What else could we expect from a president who is mostly probably the most evil man ever to occupy the White House? Consider this in the light of his order to the military to bury alive 12,000 Iraqi soldiers. Consider this in the light of ongoing war of genocide against the Iraqi people. President Bush was delighted to characterize President Saddam Hussein as the Hitler of our times. He never bothered to offer a single scrap of proof. It was not needed because President Bush made the statement. We accepted it without question. Consider this in the bright light of truth, that he did all the things in the name of the American people while secretly taking his orders from the Committee of 300. But more than anything else, consider this. President Bush and his controllers feel so secure that they no longer deem it necessary to hide their evil control of the American people or to lie about it. This is self-evident in the statement that he, as our leader, will make all manner of compromises with truth, honesty, and decency if his controllers and ours deem it necessary. On May 27, 1991, the President of the United States abandoned each and every principle embodied in our Constitution and boldly proclaimed that he was no longer bound by it. This is a great victory for the Tavistock Institute and the Prudential Bombing Survey. whose target changed from German worker housing in 1945 to the soul of the American people in a war that began in 1946 and runs through to 1992. Increased pressure on this nation for change was applied by Stanford Research Institute in the early 1960s. SRI offensive gathered power and momentum. Switch on our television set and you will see Stanford's victory in front of your eyes. Talk shows featuring heavy sexual details, special video channels where perversion, rock and roll, and drugs reign supreme. Where once John Wayne ruled, we now have a made-over apology for a man, or is he, called Michael Jackson, a parody of a human being who is held up as a hero. As he gyrates, shuffles, mumbles, and screams his way across television screens in millions of American homes. A woman who has been through a series of marriages gets national coverage. One filthy, half-washed, drug-ridden... Wow, hold up. One filthy, half-washed, drug-ridden, desailant rock band after another has hours of airtime devoted to its insane sounds and mad gyrations, clothes, fashions, and language aberrations, soap operas showing as near as damn it is to wearing pornographic scenes drawn to comment, whereas in the early 1960s this would never have been tolerated. Today it is accepted as normal. We have been subjected and we have succumbed to what Tavistock Institute calls future shocks, whose future is now, and we are so numb by one cultural shock after another that to protest seems like a futile gesture, and therefore logically we think it does no good to protest. I don't know. Maybe. In 1986, the Committee of 300 ordered the pressure turned up. The U.S. was not going down fast enough. The United States began the process of recognizing the butchers of Cambodia, the criminal Pol Pot regime, self-confessors to the murder of 2 million Cambodian citizens. In 1991, the wheel turned the full circle. The United States went to war against a friendly nation that had been programmed to trust the Washington traitors. We accused President Hussein of the small nation of Iraq of all manner of evil, none of which was even remotely true. We killed and maimed children. We left them to starve and to die of all manner of diseases. Oh, man. Okay. In the same breath, we sent the Bush emissaries of the Committee of 300 to Cambodia to recognize the evil mass murders of 2 million Cambodians who were sacrificed by the Committee of 300's depopulation of cities experiment, which the big cities of the United States will experience in the not-so-distant future. Now, President Bush and his Committee of 300 ridden administrations say, in effect, quote, "Look, people, what do you want from me? I told you that I will compromise where I see fit, even when that means sleeping with the Pol Pot murderers. So what? Kiss my hips." The level of pressure for change will reach its peak in 1993, and we shall witness scenes such as we would never have thought possible. Punch-drunk America will react, but ever so slightly. Not even the latest threat to our freedom, the personal computer card, disturbs us. Willis Harman's changing images of man would have been too technical for most of the service of Marilyn Ferguson was obtained to make it more easily understood. The Age of Aquarius heralded nude stage shows and the song which made the top 10 charts. The dawning of the age of the Aquarius swept the globe. The personal computer card, which when fully distributed, will derive us of our familiar environment, and we shall see environment means a lot more than the usual accepted meaning of the word. The United States has gone through a period of intense trauma, such as has never been visited on any other nation in the history of the world, and the worst is yet to come. Everything is going according to what Tavistock ordered and what the social scientists at Stanford mapped out. Times do not change, they are made to change. All changes are pre-planned and comes as the result of careful action. We have been changed gradually at first, but now the pace of change is picking up. The United States is being transformed from one nation under God to a polyglot of nations under several gods. The U.S. is no longer one nation under God. The framers of the Constitution have lost the battle. Our forebears spoke a common language and believed in a common religion, Christianity, and held common ideals. There were no aliens in our midst that came later in a deliberately planned attempt to break up the United States into a series of fragmented nationalities, cultures, and beliefs. If you doubt this, go down to the east side of New York or the west side of Los Angeles on any given Saturday and look around. The United States has become several nations struggling to coexist under a common system of government. When the floodgates of immigration were opened wide by Franklin D. Roosevelt, a cousin of the head of the Committee of 300, the cultural shock caused great confusion and dislocation and made one nation an unworkable concept. The Club of Rome and NATO have exaggerate. Whoa, let me exaggerate it. It says exacerbated. Oh, exacerbated some shit. The Club of Rome and NATO exacerbated the situation. Love thy neighbor is an ideal that will not work unless your neighbor is as yourself. Sounds a little racist to me. To the framers of our Constitution, the truths they laid out for future generations were self-evident to themselves, being unsure that future generations would also find the truths to which they bound this nation self-evident. They set about spelling them out. It seems that they were afraid of a time that might come when the truths they expounded would no longer be self-evident. The Tavistock Institute for Human Relations has made sure that what the framers feared might come to pass has indeed come to pass. That time has arrived with Bush and his no absolutes and his new world order under the Committee of 300. This is part of the concept of social change forced upon Americans, which Harman and the Club of Rome said would make for severe trauma and a great building up of pressure. The social upheavals that have taken place since the advent of Tavistock, the Club of Rome, and NATO will continue in the U.S. for as long as the limit of absorption is ignored. Nations are made up of individuals, and like individuals, there is a limit to their ability to absorb changes, no matter how robust they may be. This psychological truth was well proven by the Strategic Bombing Survey, which called for saturation bombing of German worker housing. As mentioned earlier, the project was the work of the Prudential Insurance Company, and no doubts today that Germany suffered its defeat because of this operation. Many of the scientists who worked on that project are working on saturation bombing of America, or else they have passed on, leaving their skilled techniques in the hands of others who followed behind them. The legacy they left behind them can be found in the fact that we have not so much lost our way as a nation, but that we have been steered in a direction opposite to that which the framers of the Declaration guided us for over 200 years. We have, in short, lost contact with our historical genes, our faith, which inspired countless generations of Americans to move forward as a nation, benefiting from the patrimony left to us by the framers of the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. That we are lost is clear to all who seek the truth, as unpleasant as it may be. With President Bush as his no absolute morals guiding us, we blunder ahead as lost nations and individuals tend to do. We are collaborating with the Committee of 300 for our own downfall and our own enslavement. Some sense it and feel a strong sense of unease. The various conspiracy theories they are familiar with do not seem to cover it at all. This is because they know nothing of the conspirators' hierarchy, the Committee of 300. These souls who feel a deep sense of unease and that something is radically wrong, yet cannot put their collective fingers on the problem, walk in darkness. They look to a future they see slipping away from them. The American dream has become a mirage. They place their faith in religion, but take no steps to help that faith along by action. Americans will never experience a retracing of the steps such as the Europeans experienced when at the height of the Dark Ages. By determined action, they awoke in themselves a spirit of renewal, which resulted in the glorious Renaissance. The enemy that has directed them to this point decided to make a strong move against the United States in 1980, so that Renaissance of America would be impossible. Who is the enemy? The enemy is no faceless. They. The enemy is clearly identifiable as the Committee of 300, the Club of Rome, NATO, and all of its affiliated organizations. The think tanks and research institution controlled by Tavistock, where there's no need to use they or the enemy, except as shorthand. We know who they, the enemy, is. The Committee of 300, with its Eastern liberal establishment, aristocracy, its banks, insurance companies, giant corporations, foundations, communication networks, presided over a hierarchy of conspirators. This is the enemy. I'll leave it there. All right. Wow, perfect. Because it's going to be 10 o'clock, so I could end this. And then start the other live. Yeah, you said it, D. Allen Warren. Peace to Big Stank, DJ Graves, Tommy. Peace to everyone who came through. I'm going to start this next live. I just want to separate the open panel from this, so if people want to read or listen to the book, you know, it's separated anyway. But I'm going to end this, and I'm going to start the other live.